Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the SheEO Lead-In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO Lead-In. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights, despite their sometimes rocky paths, and found a way to lead in. Today we're here with Holly Smithson, the CEO of Athena. How are you today?
I'm good. Delighted to be here.
Very excited to hear a little bit about why you do what you do and how you do what you do, and a little bit about your industry. Let's start, though, on a personal level. Do you have a childhood memory that kind of stands out, that kind of shows who you are as a person?
Well, this is something in my past that I don't think the average bear might guess about my background. But I got out of college and I was the first female jock at a nightclub in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina.
So what did you do? I need you to explain that.
I had 2 turntables and a microphone, Rebecca.
Really?
So much to the chagrin of my mother and father, who just paid for my education, not so that I would be a DJ, but I was working for ABC News affiliate, and this was sort of my side gig on the weekends, and go spin some records and go watch, a bunch of people come out and dance on the beach. It was pretty cool.
How fun is that?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever met anyone that's done that. That's actually hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, and then it didn't last long. Somehow I was taking over the microphone as if they were coming to hear me, because I'm not a singer-songwriter. I'm just a DJ, but I did love to use that microphone and try to act like I could sing. But yeah, it was fun. It was the launch of my illustrious broadcast career.
Well, tell us more about that. I do need to know more. Share some.
I say that in jest, but yeah. So originally I wanted to, when I was a little girl, I would watch the news with my father, and we would watch Peter Jennings on World News Tonight. Right?
Yes.
So this is in the 80s and the 90s, and he was so polished. He was so articulate, and he was such a phenomenal storyteller about what was happening in the world and current events, and educating people in their
World News Tonight.
World News Tonight.
I love
it. So it was pretty apparent at that time that I wanted to be Peter Jennings' co-anchor.
Did you?
Period.
See, now this is interesting because, well, definitely you have the personality for it, but I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It didn't happen quite in the way that I envisioned, but Ted Turner, CNN, was launching. This was in the 80s, and I was like, okay, I'm going to write a letter to Ted Turner. I'm going to let him know that he needs me to make CNN successful. And I'm going to go down in Hotlanta, because I grew up in North Carolina. I'm going to go down to Georgia, where CNN launched, and I'm going to go be a co-anchor with somebody, and I'm going to be out there to tell everybody information, current events, world affairs, and get people in the community to be really vested in what's happening in their own backyards. And that was sort of my grand vision. Ted did not return my letter.
Shocking.
But I did get a form response letter saying thank you for your application and your VHS tape. We'll keep it on file. And so I ended up getting a job with a new kind of a headline news startup, and moved to Atlantic City, North Carolina, where I was the director and anchor for that company, for that broadcast company. And it was very fascinating because a very small market, very, very small market. And it was in a military town. So you can imagine the types of headline news we find in military bases. And it was an interesting time for me because the founder of the company, the one who bought the licensing rights from Headline News, wanted all of the coverage to be political.
Oh, that couldn't have been very much fun.
Yeah. So he's like, Holly, when you go interview the Board of Education member, when you go interview the city council member, make sure that you angle her on her jowls because she's a Democrat. And we need to get rid of those Democrats. And Holly, when you go over to see the congressman, make sure that you find out if he's having an affair with his staffer. And I was like, okay, Frank, this is not news. This is not where the news comes first.
Right.
And it was my first foray. I was in my 20s, so it was my first foray to see how the political beliefs of the media can be colored into what they actually bring to the audience.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Yes.
It's not about people and positions that much. It's more about what side are they on.
Yes.
I prefer to elect people and to be a person that stands for everyone.
But you'll also remember the media used to be privately held. The media.
Right.
So then and I can't recall when they become public companies, but that was when it became all about ratings and obviously shareholder value, and that changed the entire ballgame.
Agreed. So I know a word that I'm thinking about you. What's one word that describes you?
High energy.
Oh, energetic was my word for you. So
Yeah.
we're on the same page for sure.
Well, thank you. I would say for as long as I can remember, have operated at a very high frequency. All of the sort of low frequency traits or qualities or behaviors, sort of in the negative realm, like suspicious or negative or kind of looking for what's wrong in the world. Those are very low frequency kind of channels that don't excite me. It's just not a part of my constitution. I'm always excited about what's around the corner. I'm always excited about opportunities. And so that's kind of the energy that I emit when I wake up in the morning and when I go to bed at night.
I would also say curious, because I think that lends to curious about looking what you can't wait to see what's around the corner, what's next, what comes next, what's going to happen today.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So how long have you been in your current career? And tell us a little bit about what your days look like.
Sure. I have been the president and CEO of Athena, a women's global leadership organization. And the organization actually just celebrated its 25th anniversary last year. So yeah, it's been quite a run for me. I joined 7 years ago, back in, I think it was, 2018, 2017, at the end of 2017. And that's when the hashtag #MeToo campaign was in effect. And so I came in to lead Athena during a very, very interesting shift in society.
Yeah.
And boy, I don't think none of us would have imagined the progress and the inroads that women were making because of hashtag #MeToo campaign. All of these women across a multitude of industries were stepping up and speaking, giving voice to their stories and their perspectives, and more importantly, reclaiming their agency. And so it was an extraordinary time for me personally, and certainly for Athena. And for the 20 years prior to that, we had been providing leadership development training Like that was our core value proposition.
Yeah.
We want to get more women in STEM, science, tech, engineering, and mathematics. We want a greater representation of women in these fields of STEM. They're some of the highest wage occupations. This is the most cutting edge suite of technologies that are going to shape society. And women only represent 1 in 4 STEM jobs. So 20 years ago at the time, the founders, former President Pro Tem Mayor Barbara Brie, a couple of other tech and biotech CEOs, female CEOs, said, let's close the gap. Let's create a platform to support these women. And at the center of Athena, let's provide a portfolio of leadership training and help these women navigate these otherwise male-dominated industries.
Right.
And so that was really the essence of Athena at the time. And when we started to see all of these stories unfold and really take root and some pretty significant areas, we decided that we wanted to be more of an advocate in addition to providing the leadership training. In my background, I had served 10 years in Washington, D.C. I worked in public policy. I worked in the Bush administration. Worked for a couple of federal agencies. So for me, the opportunity to elevate women in STEM was, we got to form a strategic partnership. We got to get a strategic alliance to help, broaden our impact. And I had stumbled across the United Nations Global Compact and the news. And I said, what is this? And at the time, the late Kofi Annan, who was the UN Secretary General, had set up this global compact. And it basically was a set of global goals that said, hey, for all of the CEOs around the world, we want you to be a part of making this planet sustainable. And the UN's charter after World War II was to have all the 193 countries represented in the UN to make the world so we didn't blow ourselves up to smithereens.
Right.
And what they decided was, we don't need the 193 country, representatives. We need the private sector to realize our sustainability goals. And so that was brilliant on his behalf. And that invited all of the CEOs across the world to sign on and commit to the largest corporate social responsibility initiative. And one of those global goals was gender equality. So when I saw that opportunity, I thought, are you kidding me? Athena's been serving the leadership development needs of all of these global STEM companies. Right. Pfizer, Oracle, Qualcomm, Bristol Myers Squibb, like all of these companies, I would love to be able to offer them the suite of resources through the UN Global Compact to help modernize their workforce. So I called up the UN. I'm Holly Smithson. I'm Athena's CEO. I understand you've got this global initiative. In the U.S., you don't have a whole lot of signups. Right. I would like to be your go-to-market partner. If there's an appetite and interest, happy to have a conversation. So that began a very fruitful partnership.
What year was that?
That was in 2019.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And so that began a very productive partnership. They invited me to come out to the UN General Assembly. Had an opportunity to speak on the UN floor. Just a lot of outreach. And we had a couple of events where the UN Global Compact team came out to the Bay Area. We did something with the mayor of Villagrosi in LA. And then, of course, the pandemic came. And so that, changed the relationship, as you might imagine. But the spirit of the collaboration continues, which is to let everybody know that those folks that want to create a more modern workforce, one that recognizes all of the different folks that can contribute to their profitability, to their workforce goals, and to their culture, we want to make sure that as Athena is bridging these resources, we can do it in a much more accelerated fashion.
And having all the voices at the table really does. I was talking about this a little bit earlier. Having all these different perspectives, all these different, and let's face it, men and women, we might get to the same conclusion, but there is a lot of discussion that happens before we get to that end conclusion, and ways of doing things that might be a little different from a woman's perspective, from a woman's point of view, and just I think sometimes people don't really understand that, but I think it's extremely valuable to an organization to have a lot of different people looking at, issues and figuring out solutions.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, but I just want to say when you think about I think it was Coach K from Duke University had a brilliant quote this year recently and said, "Leadership is the least taught industry, and it is the most needed trait."
Right.
And we have a lot of people that are elected into office. We have a lot of people that hold leadership titles. We have a lot of people that are paid leadership grade salaries. But yet the ability to lead and the effectiveness of that leadership, sometimes there's a very large gap. And in my mind, the fundamental responsibility of a leader, of leaders, is to optimize and maximize the talent.
Absolutely.
And when we're only engaging, recognizing, rewarding, recruiting, hiring, retaining a subsection of the talent, then by the very definition, you are failing at leadership.
Well, and some of your best leaders, you're passing over them because you're not investing in them.
Said better.
You're just looking for the ones that are out there that are already glowing, but there
like
are a
you.
lot that are glowing that they can anyway, that you're just passing over.
And it's interesting because we need to recognize that the next generation is our that's the answer. And these folks that are coming up, at CSU San Marcos and San Diego State University, and they don't see the world in the way that the last generation does. And so we have an opportunity to educate them. We have an opportunity to excite them, to entice them, and to let them lead in ways that look past the traditions and the bro culture that is really stale and a very broken model.
Well, definitely, because technology has changed. You have a lot of different minds, and they think differently than us. And I tell I have a 28-year-old and a 24-year-old son and daughter, and I tell them, you're going to learn things from older people, you're going to learn things from people the same age, and you're going to learn things from people that are younger than you. Don't discount that their ideas don't, that they don't mean anything because they're younger than you and they must not know anything, because they're going to have a different perspective. So what you do is you literally bring it all together, and then you can figure out how you serve everyone and how you're going to lead in a way that makes sense to bring as many people together, because you don't want people to feel left out. You want to be able to cultivate, again, people that have this glow inside of them that haven't realized it yet because they can't see it in themselves. How do you figure out how to bring them along? I think it's a fascinating discussion.
Well, you think about a lot, we think about product development and product design and the industry standards. If you have the majority of folks that are designing and innovating new products and services, for example, the Apple Watch, and you had a variety of men on the product development team, and it had all these bells and whistles and was going to get all sorts of, the user experience was going to be awesome, and the market penetration will be just prolific. And what you found is, in the absence of having women on the product design team, it didn't have any functionalities for women. For example, women that are trying to build a family. So it didn't have the capability to measure her cycle. And so a huge missed opportunity, a use case that a team of very well-intended guys wouldn't even occur to them.
Right.
So, and that's just one tiny example.
Yes, a tiny example.
Where when you don't have those different perspectives, different, experiences, that you're missing out. And Tim Cook confessed and said, yeah, we missed that. We did a big strikeout on that. And so it's just, it takes the
But
humility.
they learned something too.
Right. So each time it's like you're hearing, the CEO of arguably one of the biggest companies in the world saying, yeah, we stumbled. That
Right.
was a big strike. And we're going to lose customers. We're going to lose profitability, and we lose trust on the behalf of our customers that they're actually designing with us in mind.
But then you can make a course correction. And this actually leads me to the next thing, and that's success and failure. Sometimes you do have to fail to succeed.
Well, I would argue that you have to.
Yeah, you.
But we don't have to fail when we already have seen the business case made
Right.
for why having a diverse set of players in your company are going to reward you, but yet you still don't modernize your workforce.
Yeah, you
So
have to.
that is not a course correction. That is an outright strategic decision to not to seize that moment. I mean, that to me is negligent.
Well, sure. But then when a lot of people go, oh, now I guess we can make a tweak. I mean, it kind of is late, but you can always fix it generally. But it is something definitely to think about. And again, just having the diverse workforce, the diverse think tank of how you can better your actual product is always important.
And I think that's so what kind of signal does that, cast out to the market that here is arguably the smartest company, and yet they are not including women in the development of products that are going to serve. And by the way, women make up 51% of the population, the
Right.
planet.
Yeah.
So you're not selling, you're not designing, you're not even considering use cases for your product, and you don't have women on the design team. So what does that signal to the marketplace?
Well, either you don't want them to buy your product, or it opens the door for someone else to come in and make that product that will actually serve the women, and then they'll buy their product.
And that's how embedded the biases are.
Yeah.
This was 2023, I believe.
Yeah.
That's how deeply embedded the biases are. So before we can solve the problem, we just have to have a recognition that it exists. It still exists, that despite the data from Harvard, from Accenture, from PwC, from Athena, despite all of the research that shows when we don't diversify our workforce, when we don't modernize our team composition, we are going to suffer. We're going to suffer on our business, our profitability, our innovation cycle. And for those that are publicly traded companies, shareholders don't like that.
Right. Yeah.
So it begs the question, if you're not driven by your responsibilities to the customer and to your stakeholders, what are you working towards?
What do you think the answer to that is?
Well, one answer might be we're not interested in the profits as much as we are in the preservation of power.
Interesting. And I don't even know what to say to that, because that actually it's a pretty deep conversation.
Well, if the data continually shows and reveals that these companies are leaving money on the table, if we continue to show evidence that the activities that we just described that are leaving out women, leaving out customer, leaving out markets, emerging markets, new markets, and yet it continues, then one can only surmise that perhaps this has nothing to do with money. This has to do with keeping a segment of the population on top and somebody on the bottom. It's sort of a social construct that allows control and authority in a society. And I have been, in the 7 years as the CEO of Athena, have been making the business case on every stage and every podcast and every auditorium that I'm invited to come in. I share that question for us to really ask ourselves, why are we making the business case to a deaf business community?
So do you think you've made an impact on that?
I mean, if we're looking to solve for a problem, we need
Yeah.
to actually identify what is the root cause. And if we're going at it from a financial standpoint, I would say we've made our case. Let's wait for the market to respond. And if we've made the business case, they haven't responded, then perhaps we've got a false hypothesis that business is actually interested in profits as a first and foremost. And so it begs the question, this isn't necessarily about money. This is about power.
So, going with that thought process, do you think that in your career, the people that you go and speak to about all of this, do you think there's a resistance? Do you think that there is a bias for you telling this story and sharing your thoughts about this?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting. So, what's key is to continue to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And Athena, has been on the market for 25 years, serving as the voice of women in STEM. We've had some amazing women like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We have all of these iconic women that have risen through the ranks, notwithstanding these long standing biases and the hashtag Me Too campaign. We've got over 100 women in Congress, a handful of women on Supreme Court justice, obviously mayors like yourself that are representing women across local and state politics. But if we're not continually having these conversations and stress testing these hypotheses that we just need to show that women can bring profit to the company and the bottom line, if we're not continuing to challenge the data that continues to show, in our case, 1 in 4 STEM women, 1 in 4 STEM jobs are held by women. This has been the case for 25 years.
Yeah.
So it really, I'm always struck by the fact that we're going to have ebb and flows. Like life happens in seasons and cycles.
Yeah.
And after the murder of George Floyd, we had all of this support as people were watching these things unfold in their living room. They weren't taking their son to basketball class. They weren't going to the grocery store. They weren't going to fly off to meet a client. They were stuck at home and they couldn't ignore the state of society. And so there was through that growing awareness, we started that consciousness, we started to see people behave differently. And we really uncovered, I believe, our true side. And then I believe we had a lot of politics and a lot of different leaders that were coming in place. And I think the blowback was there was a fear that the what do we call it? The patriarch revenge campaign was going to rear its ugly head. And if we're going to have the browning of America, if we're going to have if white men are going to be in the minority, if we're going to have all this diversification, if we're going to have recognized, LGBTQ rights, that to a section of society was too much for them to imagine and just completely stand still and find themselves looking at becoming a minority.
Yeah.
And they're like, whoa, let's slam on the brakes. And that's why now, in the wake of affirmative action being overturned by Supreme Court Justice, the overturning of diversity funding in state legislatures across the country, I'm now running a crime lab. I'm actually teaching women and male allies how to operationalize and reap the benefits of diversity. And depending on what state you're in, that could be illegal and I could be slapped with a lawsuit. So this is, again, I'm going to come back to life happens in seasons and cycles. Yeah. And so it's so important to have conversations like this to get back to your question, to continue to ask ourselves, is what's happening really in alignment with our values? Or is what's happening a sign of resistance to our evolution? We're just evolving as a society. We're evolving. And then sometimes we look around and we look like we're devolving, right? Women's rights, reproductive
it's hard
rights.
to know. I think it is a very, it is kind of a, push and pull. And,
yes.
And where are we at today? It might not be the same tomorrow.
Yes.
I agree. So as far as life lessons and how you would you walk into a room of young women that want to be leaders. What would your advice be to them?
I will tell you what this next gen needs more than anything is they need models. They've got to see role models. Yeah. They've got to see more Rebeccas, more Hollys, more Susans, more Aishas, they need to see role models that say, notwithstanding all of this noise that is out here, life is going to meet you precisely at your level of confidence. And the more people that you see like you that are leading companies, leading teams, leading business units, that are leading municipalities, leading in Congress, then they get to write a story that aligns with their values. That I want to contribute to society. I don't want to wear a headscarf. I don't want to play small. I don't want to just have an admin role. I
can do more.
I can do more because she's doing more.
That's right.
And if we don't have those role models, like on your podcast, showing more stories, sharing more stories, and reminding people we can't retreat just because the blender is in drive. We have to continue to push forward. And that is what leadership is.
It is. It is. And, I talk to young people a lot, and there are so many, and I've actually heard this a lot from the podcast guests too, is that their thoughts about success are really based on a lot of what they think about themselves at any given moment. So if you are in a place where you've been through some really tough things, you just feel sort of broken and you're thinking, oh gosh, I can't move forward. I can't do it. I can't see the possibilities of where I could end up 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I think being able to see past all of that, looking for the role models of people that are women, especially, that are kind of breaking through those barriers that say, you know what, I might be able to do that. I might be able to dream that big, and it's much bigger than I think. And I also share with young people, and it's going to be uncomfortable at times. You're going to have to push through things where you just kind of go, oh, I don't know about this. I mean, I used to be terrified of public speaking. I know that sounds so funny, but it's true. I mean, and I think a lot of people feel that way. But when you're pushing yourself through, a fear that you have, you actually are growing, and then you can actually do so much more, and not specifically just in that one area, but in all areas.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I always say that, being confident at whatever state that you're in your career journey or life in general is you don't do it in the absence of fear. You actually do it recognizing the two can coexist. And you learn to dance with fear.
That's right.
And give her a chair and say, have a seat, get some water. I've got to go into this meeting. I've got to go into this podcast. I got to go into all hands meeting. And no matter what happens, guess what? It's going to work out exactly how it's supposed to work out.
That's right.
And guess what? Everybody else in that room has the same damn thoughts as you do.
Right.
Right? What am I going to say? Do I have all the answers if I get called on? Did I do enough research for this? Oh my gosh, are these shoes, that half the people in here got high heels and I got flip-flops. Whatever your story is, everybody else is running the same soundtrack. Yeah. So grace is another attribute that I would love for the next gen to entertain and make a part of their repartee. Because if you don't apply grace to yourself, that's when you get like white-knuckled. That's when you get rigid and fear-based, which is what we're seeing in society right now. Everybody is operating from a place of fear.
Yeah.
And that's not where growth happens.
And Holly, I would actually argue too that it's not just grace for yourself, it's also grace for others, because you're going to need it at times too. And we all mess up at times. We're not perfect. We're perfectly imperfect. That's what I always say. I'm perfectly imperfect. I make mistakes all the time. But that, again, you've got to learn from them.
I love that advice. I would say giving grace to others when they're acting in ways that are completely disproportionate to, the interaction. and go, wow, this person's obviously not having a good day today, but I am, so I'm going to move on. And it literally is giving grace to those people that are on their own journey.
That's right.
And we're all on our own journey. And the more grace that you actually offer, it will come back to you, right? That grace begets grace, and confidence begets confidence. And if you could have those nuggets and you could put them in a little B12 shot and get in the next gen, to know that no matter what happens, it's all going to work out. And that's a lot of faith that you're asking these people that don't have any frame of reference. So that's a big ask.
True.
But when you see women that are doing that, modeling those behaviors, modeling those traits, espousing those as core values, then it becomes easier. That is their frame of reference. Right. That becomes something that when they're in a pickle, they go, oh, wait a minute, but I saw Rebecca do this at the all hands meeting. So I'm going to say, you know what, I don't really have that answer, but I'm going to make sure I've got that. You can expect that tomorrow, end of day tomorrow. That's it. It's like, stop thinking that you have to be something that you're not. You have to have all the answers. You have to be perfect. You have to have it all figured out. That's when you invite more fear and uncertainty.
Yeah.
And that can cripple you. And these are things you learn over time. But again, the key is just to find your cadence and your leadership sort of voyage. And if you don't have a lot of examples along the way in each of those wait stations, it can be a little bit more painful than it probably has to be.
What a fantastic discussion.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Very thought-provoking, and again, energetic, fun. Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. I did too. It was lovely to come and share on this awesome podcast, which I'm just so excited because there's so many of our clients that have been on the show, and just a treat and an honor. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learn how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host Rebecca Jones.